Hello and welcome to the Arsenal BiteSize Podcast. I'm FPL Nima and I'm joined by my co-host at Clates AFC on Twitter. We're here fresh off the 1-0 victory away at Leicester yesterday. I know Clayton was travelling to the away game, so interested to hear how you're doing this morning, how your head is.
Yeah, no, I'm all right, to be fair. I'm better than I thought I'd be. And I don't know how. I think I had a fat doner kebab late last night, like washed down with a pint of waters. I think that helped. But wow, what a day, man! It's the first like normal hour away game I've done. Because obviously Everton, Man City, I had to get the coach at like donkey hours because of the train times and stuff. And even previous ones I've done, like Wolves was an evening game midweek. So this was the first Saturday 3 o'clock away game for Arsenal I've ever done. So it was so nice. Just woke up, went on the train from King's Cross, had met a mate, had a few beers on the way up. We actually went straight into the concourse actually yesterday rather than the away pub. Had a drink in there, and that I don't know if like you could hear the atmosphere, but like it being there, the away fans felt absolutely ridiculous. I was just loud and proud the whole 90 minutes. And yeah, I mean, I've always maintained I think we have like the best away following in the country, or if not the best, like top 2 or 3. Okay, in the country's hard to say because I don't follow too much the lower
I was
leagues.
going to
But
say
like
Scottish football as well. Yeah, I
yeah,
imagine some of them are a bit nuts
I
out there.
yeah, I meant Premier League, but like in
Yeah.
the Premier League, we've definitely got one of the best away following, and it's such a pleasure to be part of it with them, and it's so fucking fun. But yeah, that was all like the atmosphere stuff. But then obviously the actual football was brilliant, wasn't it? It was another away day win. I saw a screenshot someone put on Twitter this morning about like the away table, and it's just so surreal to see how good we are away from home, considering the Wenger years where it's like we just get pummeled wherever we'd go, right? So we've come so far.
I was thinking, yeah, so from an away perspective, obviously we lost at Old Trafford, but have we lost another away game this season that you can remember?
I think it's just that one, and then we drew at Southampton, right?
Yeah, so we drew against them. So I can imagine, yeah, our points in the table from an away perspective, and then clean sheets when you add that in, obviously,
Yeah,
like this is maybe our 8th or 9th away clean sheet of the season compared to like maybe 2 at home or 3 at home.
yeah, and they've been at places that are teams that you expect to score. So like Brentford, Chelsea, Leicester. Like obviously my mind's gone blank. There's been a few more. What Spurs, was that a clean sheet? It was 2-0, right?
I think so.
Yeah, like it's the level of control at these games is fucking mad. I can't really get my head around it. It's yeah, absolutely. You said it last week, right? Like this is a super team that's being built under people's eyes, and it's still not really being taken seriously. Um, yeah, Ryder's just reminded us about Everton away in the chat. So
That was the
yeah,
one, yeah. I was gonna
yeah,
say, I'm pretty sure there was another loss. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, we've had, is
we,
it 3 losses this season? And like obviously
yeah,
2 of them were away from home, yeah.
you can tell we've just completely blocked that out of our memory, right? The fact that that did not come to the surface, and that was literally 2 3 weeks ago. I
I'm
think that
sure it
says a
will. I'm
lot.
sure it will be coming back to the surface because after we talk about this Leicester game, we will briefly touch on a preview of the Everton home game this week. So I definitely think we're going to want some revenge there. That's for sure. In
Yeah, big
terms of
time.
the super team, as you say, I did feel that we were kind of quick out of the blocks, something that we
Yeah,
maybe hadn't been seeing in recent weeks. So it was nice to see us ever since that kind of City defeat at home. We've now gone away twice in a row. We've got 6 points from those. We've done what we needed to do. I don't think I was expecting Man City to drop points against Bournemouth for what it's
no, nor
worth.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
and
wasn't
it was
that
quite
wasn't a
nice.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite nice that we were never like, oh, could they get something? It was just like, okay, fuck it, 4-1, just get it done and over with. On to Everton.
Yeah, I think it was nice to just not have to worry about their game. Like it kind of like
Yeah,
just focus on our own game and our own result.
yeah,
Just a quick shout out as well to Bungle for tuning in. Thank you for
nice
coming
one,
here
mate.
live. I imagine it's like late night in Tokyo right now. Let us know what time it is, mate.
Yeah, I
And
was
then
drunk messaging Bungle last night on my way back from the game.
and then Raider, thanks for tuning in as well, and for
Peace,
the
lads.
reminder as well. Cool. All right.
Yeah.
So should we pull up our lineup against Leicester and we can maybe talk a little bit about just a 1 minute summary from each of us of how we felt the game went, and then maybe individual players we want to call out as well for the match.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, obviously there were rumours flying around before the game about Nketiah and whether Trossard would come in, right? And that happened to be true. I think we had a discussion around Jorginho or Party, and we said we thought it'd be Jorginho. We had a discussion around White. Tommy, actually, you were more bullish on White than I was, and like you got that. I mean, I put White in my predictor, but like I said, I was 50-50 on it. And yeah, he came in and he was fantastic, weren't he? I think the whole team, like you said, we kind of came out quick out of the blocks. And do you know what? First half, I feel like we were really good on the ball. We were getting into really good areas, but I couldn't remember like a clear cut chance per se. Um, and then yeah, second half it was just I think coming out and having the goal so early on, it was just yeah that kind of set the tone because although I say we didn't create any clear chances. Apart from Leicester's offside goal, I never felt like they were going to lay a glove on us. To be honest, I just felt that level of control we had everywhere was ridiculous, and it was nice to see the Trossard, Martinelli, Saka like link up and stuff because that was something that I tweeted that I wasn't I said I wasn't confident in it, and I think confident was the wrong word. It was more just I think it's something unfamiliar to me, and I know Trossard's played it at Brighton, but where I've not seen it in our shirt, I wasn't sure what to expect, and it was really nice. I think the way Martinelli and Trossard rotated, who was in that zone sometimes, the link ups was good. Obviously, they linked up for the goal. Trossard obviously had a ridiculous finish that didn't count. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But yeah, overall, I just think it was a really professional convincing performance. I think we didn't really go 100 miles an hour and we didn't really need to. And in terms of standout players, I just think the it feels harsh to like single anyone out for a stellar performance because I feel like everyone did really well. I thought Jorginho was very good again. For the back four, all fantastic. Yeah, I just think everyone had a very good game. I'm happy for Martinelli how he took his goal. I think we should have had a penalty on Saka, to be honest. And yeah, Trossard looked really good in that position. So I think it gives us another string to our bow. So, how about you?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that Trossard as like a kind of striker more when we talk about the next game and whether we think that's something we either expect or want to see again, or whether Nketiah comes straight back in. So I think we can come to that part once we finish this wrap up. But it is an interesting debate amongst Gooners at the moment, I think. Martinelli, I was just so happy for him. I wasn't sure he could continue in that game. After he scored the goal, it was a bit of a bittersweet moment. Like, obviously, the
Yeah,
way he went down and they called the physios over straight away. I was really concerned. I didn't know what happened. Like, I wasn't sure if it was like off the ball. And then I saw the replays a few times, and obviously, no kind of issues from Ndidi. Like, he was just trying to run back and defend, but you could see he like put his studs on his knees, and I just started to get very nervous.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was
Because
really
he was
genuinely
down for
worried
a
at that
while,
point.
weren't he?
Yeah, and I kind of thought to myself, what if he's twisted his kneecap or something? I was honestly fearing the worst after his long absence, obviously a couple seasons back when he had to come back from a bad injury. So thank God he was okay there. I think Arteta as well after the match kind of said, he needed a rest. He got his rest. He's now back in. We're delighted he signed his extension. We're trying to build the best team, and we need the best players for that. So that kind of reiterates to me that he is very much the first choice left wing, and that
Oh yeah,
actually I think and that's where my whole kind of debate came in of until Jesus comes back. Is it that actually Trossard is a threat to both Martinelli and Nketiah rather than
yeah,
just to Martinelli? Because now Martinelli's, got his 2 goals and 2 after maybe a bit of a barren run. We could see he'd been frustrated lately. We said there wasn't as much link up with Nketiah. I did feel the link up with Trossard was more akin to how when Jesus plays
yeah.
with him.
Big time. Like obviously they're very different players, but stylistically in the areas they operated in, there was more similarities with Trossard and Jesus than what Nketiah gives us, right? And
Mm.
yeah, I think it benefited both of them. I think we've got the passing networks on the slide later on, but yeah, you could just see the kind of triangles were ever present on the left again. And I don't think it was a coincidence. I think Xhaka had a better game as well. And yeah, I just think even Zinchenko, I use the term like pointless control sometimes with when Zinchenko tucks in. And like, obviously, I'm not downplaying what he does. I just think there's certain games where it feels like we kind of do it for the sake of it. But yesterday, that whole left side dynamic was absolutely back to its best again. And yeah, to be honest, I never really looked at Trossard as a threat to Nketiah. I thought he was very much
Mm.
brought in to kind of uh, play the. Yeah, so many people had said, obviously, he's played there for Brighton and stuff, and I just thought it was a bit of a FIFA thing that Arsenal fans were doing. You know, like how back in the day it was like, oh, Vermaelen can play at DM. I thought
You
it was a
bring
bit
on
of
all
that.
your attackers on, and like you play with three
Yeah,
defenders or something.
but like, yeah, everyone was spot on, right? So I was off the mark on that. You're right. He's absolutely a threat to Martinelli and Nketiah now. I still think Martinelli, like for FPL wise, I do think Martinelli's minutes will be reduced significantly because I do think there'll be so many game states where we can afford to bring him off 60, 65, and I think he'll take advantage of that. But now, until Jesus is back, let's see if Trossard stays up there.
Yeah, no, and it's a good problem we said last episode as well to have for the manager, right? He brought Trossard off the bench, he scored. He brought Martinelli off the bench, he scored. It's like we didn't
Yeah,
like that was the depth we were missing when we played
big
Newcastle at
time.
the Emirates and it was 0-0 and we had no one to bring on to change the game. You know, Nelson was injured, Smith Rowe was injured, we hadn't signed some players yet. In terms of Jorginho, my biggest compliment to him is that I didn't feel we missed Partey in that game. And I think that alone is a big compliment considering
Yeah,
how pivotal Partey has been to every good game we've had this season, pretty much. I don't believe we've lost a game that he kind of played the full game. I know we've lost games where he's gone off injured halfway through,
yeah.
but in terms of when he's actually played a full game, like we don't typically lose those.
Yeah, he's very good, man. He's like, do you remember what I said? Because obviously initially I was a bit disappointed because I thought we could have gone for a higher caliber quality player, right? But then do you remember the episode after I've actually kind of I did a bit of homework, watched a bit, and the thing I found was obviously his interceptions and like the progressive passing was never in doubt and his ability to control the tempo. But my skepticism was if we're in a game that is a transition game and it's a bit of a basketball game, I worry about him. But then I just thought the structure we've got in our team and the way the invert, like you said last week, the way the fullbacks invert, like we press as a unit, we defend as a unit everywhere. It's not just from the front,
But
it's
did you see that moment
everywhere.
yesterday where they were 4v3
The
against us?
Avengers assemble.
Yeah, and like 3 seconds after being 4v3, all 10 outfield players from our side were in the box after Zinchenko's like Avengers Assemble and pointing in
Yeah,
the box. Yeah, that was
that
wild.
was mad. That was a nice touch, wasn't it? Giving him the captaincy as well.
Yeah, I saw that it was actually the players who came up with the idea,
Yeah,
not
it was
Arteta.
Odegaard. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
lovely.
Odegaard spoke to him and he said, you know, we want this as a squad, we want this for him. Huge kind of togetherness in this team. And I think what I really love is that you're not seeing anyone kind of dropping their heads if they're not starting. We saw it in
Yeah,
interviews earlier in the season with Tomiyasu. He said, you know, this is my role, I'll come on. Holding says he understands his role. Like generally, I imagine Tierney's a bit disappointed, but overall, most of the squad, even the ones not always starting, seem to understand that we all have to work together and play a part in this challenge.
yeah.
And it's keeping them fresh. And the reason I just remembered to say that is because obviously Terence is here as well. Good to see you, mate. And he just
Amen.
mentioned you have to create hunger games. No hunger if players start every week. Quick shout out to Blue Danube Joe as well. So yeah, the reason
Nice one.
that
Cheers, guys.
resonated with me from Terence is just because I think over the years, like especially under Wenger as well, like there was periods where like no matter how you played, you knew you were going to be in the 11 for the Prem, and
Yeah,
some other group of players would be in the Europa squad, and you knew no matter how badly you did, like you couldn't be dropped. Whereas now, you've heard the players say it in interviews. They're like, "Oh, you know, like if I have a bad game, like I know there's like these great players just waiting to take my spot." So they
yeah.
all know they're all fighting more. Like it was no coincidence when Ben White came on as a sub for Tomiyasu the other
Oh,
game.
that yeah.
Yeah, he looked like he was going for it. He
He
did not want
wanted
to
the
lose his
killer,
spot.
man. Yeah, he was taking bodies. But like this is it, and it's like the gradual squad building project that we're doing, right? It's like you've seen us have a core of 12 first team level players that he trusts. It's slowly creeping up to 14, 15 now. And I think the goal next year in the Champions League will be to have like, I don't think we're in a position to have 22 players and like one individual backup for every position, but I do think we're in a position where we could have a core squad, a core flexible squad that can cover 2, 3 positions and zones of like 17, 18 players, and I think that's where we're looking to head. And yeah, it's exciting. It's so exciting, and yeah, like you say, people can't afford for their level to drop now.
Yeah, exactly that. And have you seen? Obviously, there was rumored links to the defender centre back Tapsoba, and
No,
he's
not
been
seen
a
that.
name that's been like floated around for a few years now. I've never really like watched him play, but I've heard of him. But the reason I mention him is not because of what he would bring. As we say, we're not attached to names, we're attached to profiles.
Yeah.
He can kind of play either side of centre back. He's basically like 2-footed.
Okay.
And
is he right-footed or?
no, he's literally 2-footed. Like he's almost like a Tomiyasu in terms of being ambipedal as well. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
But the reason I mention him is that if you look at, like, say, next season, if we were to get another centre back, I imagine he would be like a Rob Holding replacement long term.
Yeah.
We almost have like 8 players in that back line. And if you look at it, like, we have obviously Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko in this group. Now, let's say Tierney stays. You've then got Tierney, Kiwi, or Tapsoba, and Tomiyasu. Now, when I look at that, I'm like, wait a second.
That's better than some teams' first team.
But that's what I mean. That second back four is better than like the back four we were rolling out a few years ago. Like, even when Arteta first arrived, when we were looking at the likes of Mustafi, Louise, Cedric, Socrates, like that, Lichtstein, like, oh my god.
Yeah.
So I think from that perspective, I'm just really happy to see that, like, this squad build, like, it is truly, bearing fruit, and we're not going to stop here. Like, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep improving when we can. And there's something to improve.
And this is why, like, just on general, like, macro chat, when people say, "Oh, this is our best chance to win the league. We're never going to get a shot like this again." I agree with it if it's from a view of, like, we might not be 5 points clear against the City team that look this dysfunctional again, but I think we will consistently be challenging for every major honour under Arteta and Edu, as long as their relationship stays symbiotic like this and they continue to be backed. I just think the underlying processes of everything at this football club right now is elite. And unfortunately, the thing I always say with, like, football fans outside of Arsenal is they will never be able to proactively see something until it's happened. But it's like this team, right? Of course, like this season, we didn't think we'd be here right now. But we were locked for 4th in our heads, like, minimum. And do you remember the thread I put out was like, I think we can do 85 points and stuff. Like, people that follow the processes of this club in and out were fully aware of how much it could go boom. And that's why, I don't know what.
It was just quicker than we thought, right? Like, I guess, like I always said when we missed out on Champions League last year, that I felt that would have been like the rocket fuel to this trajectory we were on, but the trajectory wasn't going to change. It might just be slower. How foolish was I to not realize that somehow it would actually mean the trajectory would be quicker, not slower. Like, I honestly thought having the Champions League status, the money, the attraction to players we could sign, I thought that would have been rocket fuel. And yet somehow, instead, we brought in players like Jesus and Zinchenko, brought in the leadership who weren't so concerned about us not being in Champions League, but were like, we're going to get them into the Champions League. Like, that was their mentality. Like, that's fine, because this is the only year we're not going to be in the Champions League. We're going to take this team to that level. So just, honestly, it's just such a refreshing thing to see players come in and surround this young, super talented squad with, experienced winners. And that's what Jorginho is as well, right? Like, he's a Champions League winner, he's a Europe winner. So Europa, and it's just, I keep saying Europa, Euros, goddamn winner. I've still tried to forget that final against England. I know you were there at Wembley. But yeah, honestly, I'm so happy. I just want to mention just one thing. So Jorginho, we talked about, I don't think it's just what he did kind of in terms of like making us not feel like we missed party, but there was a couple balls he made that I was just like, holy shit, this guy's a baller. So the first one was when he cut the entire defense to Saka in one ball.
It was ridiculous. It was like the gap in between the centre back and the fullback, and like considering the fullback's body positioning, he made him do a 360. Like, I couldn't. My jaw dropped. Yeah,
that was honestly phenomenal. And then there was another one where he put it to the left wing, I think, towards Martinelli again, and it's just, I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Like, I love this. But Zinchenko, another thing on him, I noticed that as we were kind of struggling to break them down, because they actually did go compact, it looks like every team tries to block us out nowadays. I think that's a real respect to us, that every team, even teams that never park the bus against anyone, will still try their best to keep us out and have 10 men behind the ball. And in that scenario, I was like, what's going on? And then I see Zinchenko just playing in the right attacking mid for a while. Yeah. He just wasn't there in the left, anywhere on the left zone. Forget left back. We know he doesn't play left back, but he was just on the right-hand side of the pitch trying to add an extra man to help Saka, Odegaard and White. And I just love to see that. Honestly, it made me so happy to see the way I honestly feel he is like one of the engines of our team. Week after week, he's becoming more and more one of my favorite players in this squad. I just
Yeah.
love him.
Yeah, and I think just like another indicator in how far this team has come. You remember last season how much Arteta was coaching them on the sidelines? You can just see, like, obviously he still does it a little bit, but you can see how many of the patterns and movements are just automatic to them now. Like they know they with a blindfold where everyone is on the pitch. If Saka moves here, they know where White and Odegaard is. If Zinchenko tucks in, they know Gabriel's there and Martinelli is the outlet and where Xhaka is. It's so bloody clever. And yeah, I think just like the aptitude of the team, just week in, week out, just keeps going up a level. And it's yesterday summarized it. Yesterday, did we really need to get out of second gear? Not really, but did you see the stat about Leicester's XG being like, maybe this is a good segue to go onto the stats
Yeah,
for the
that's
next
true.
one, but
Actually, yeah.
like it was supposedly the lowest XG out of since they've been
So with
collecting
the
Premier.
XG philosophy, so their account was started in 2017, so 6 years ago. And since they created their account, and obviously they wrote the XG philosophy book as well, and brought XG to like mainstream media, they essentially said like, this is the lowest we've ever seen. Now on the Marcar stats, it has Leicester at 0.04. Now the XG philosophy had them at 0.01.
Yeah, and it was just the Dewsbury Hall shot, I think, right from outside the box. Was it that one?
Was that the set piece that Ramsdale saved,
No,
or was
no.
that no?
So this was Dewsbury Hall just picked up the ball like
I
25
just
yards out
booted it
and
out
he
from the
smacked
box.
it. And like to be fair, it was close. Like it hit the side netting, but it was so far out. That's the only shot I remember. It must be that. Like
Well, when you look at this, like on the graphic, like obviously you can't see the visual in the podcast format, but the cumulative expected goals, it's around the kind of 70th minute. That's that one 0.04 shot, as you say, and like
yeah,
that is it in the entire game.
yeah.
Like that is literally it. Like there is no other, like no one has seen anything like that before.
And I
Not
know,
that
like,
I remember.
I do think this might be a game that kind of goes under the radar just because we're Arsenal, we're top of the league. But like Leicester are a team that score goals and create good goal
Especially at
scoring
home,
opportunity.
yeah.
I know Madison was a doubt. I know Madison wasn't there, but still, like they've played games without Madison and caused teams a lot of problems. And like they score goals. That's what they're leaky in defense, granted, but they score goals. And what we did yesterday was just yeah, similar to the away games we touched on earlier in the episode, where like Spurs, Brentford, Chelsea, just the level of control was a joke. And even with us, like obviously it looks like a low XG game, but I stand by we should have had a penalty. The Martinelli, that move when Odegaard like slightly chipped it through to Martinelli and he squared it to Saka, he scored, and like I think he was offside from what I've seen, but it's a bit weird they didn't draw the lines for that one. But anyway, if
Yeah, it
that
frustrated me. Yeah, I didn't see. Obviously, they didn't show it to me. The ref never went to the monitor, so maybe they think it's a clear offside. But from my naked eye, without the lines, it looked marginal, and I would love to have seen the lines.
yeah.
It just, yeah, I don't, maybe it's because the on-field linesman obviously called it offside, so they
Oh
were
yeah,
like,
true.
it's not a significant enough error to call the ref to look at the monitor. And maybe it's one of those where if we would see the lines now and it had been given as a goal, they also wouldn't have told them to go and look at the monitor because it was that marginal. So
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know,
true.
man. It's just
But
frustrating, but
for what it's
against
worth,
all odds though, we made it still somehow.
yeah, no, but I do think it was off to be fair. But what I'm saying
Yeah,
is just more
yeah.
like imagine if it wasn't like that's a tap in and just
Because all our
okay,
XGs disappeared off those chances. Yeah.
yeah, and that XG is one thing, but like the threat overall was just it was relentless. And then you look at the possession, the field tilt. I don't know if you've seen Roger's interview. It was really, really insightful, like very respectful, and you can tell he actually said he was like, yeah, they're gonna go like really far. They'll be very close to the title. We're technically, tactically on a different level. Like he was talking about people in tight spaces, and it's just so nice and surreal to see fellow professionals kind of giving a like tipping their hat to us in that sense. But you look at all the metrics from yesterday, and like, yeah, I guess the XG looks close, but it was just, we just did not get out of second gear because we didn't need to. Even the field tilt away from home, 77.6%. That's a joke. Like, that's ridiculous.
That is a bit nuts. I did feel that, there was a few moments where like they tried to change the game. They obviously brought on Vardy when they were needing that goal. That they got
Yeah,
rid of
and then they went
Iheanacho.
4-4-2 as well.
Yeah, they even went to that front too, didn't they, towards the dying embers of the match. But I just feel that this team is something special, and I think they've gone through like one of the toughest fixture runs since the World Cup restart, and
Yeah.
we've not like appreciated that. Like I think we look at someone like United who's been doing fantastic, and don't get me wrong, like Ten Hag's in-game management. I said this before. I think it's great. Like his substitutes have contributed for the most goals this season.
Like I say, he just gets his starting 11 wrong.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other way to look at it. Exactly. We've got to
I'm going with that one.
So he's definitely been praised for that, and rightly so. But when you kind of look at the fixture run that United have had since the World Cup restart, I think I saw a source saying that it was the second kindest fixture run in the entire league. So I would expect that to change now. And equally for us, now I expect us to have a kind of decent March before we get into that crunch of April, where we saw that, if we get further in Europa League, if we get to the quarterfinals, that is going to be painful, because it's going to be like Liverpool, Europa League quarterfinal. Then it's going to be Southampton, City, Chelsea,
Newcastle
Europa League, Newcastle. That's going to be a mental April. So we need Jesus back for then. Hopefully we see him start to get some minutes and get some cameos and build up that fitness. There was great news on Friday from the presser, obviously, that he's had no negative reactions since.
It was nice. Smith Rowe was in the squad and on the bench yesterday. Partey came on. That Partey in the number 8 role. That was funny.
I know. When I saw that, did you see that breakaway at the end where he was like on the right wing and he tried to cross the ball into the box?
It's funny though, because I can't remember if I mentioned it on one of the pods we did or if I tweeted it, but I did say I could see a circumstance where like Partey plays as a number 8 with Jorginho and Odegaard, so like Jorginho holding and stuff. Like I could see that, and that didn't really get any traction. And then he came on there yesterday. I was like, hang on a minute, is this maybe going to be a thing in some games where you can afford to?
This is like the new way to close out games. Not bring on Rob Holding for an attacker, but bring on Thomas Partey or Jorginho for like Odegaard.
Yeah, I liked it. It was like, wow, look at that midfield go. But just a random one on something you said about like our April and stuff. Obviously, granted, that is bloody tough. But you got to think City, if they progress in Europe, they will have a tough run as well. And I calculated this morning, they can get like, I need to stop looking so far ahead and just do one game at a time, but I can't fucking help it. I'm not going to lie. But they can get a maximum of 94 points in the league now, right? Mm-hmm. They're not potentially famous last words, but I don't think they're going to get maximum points until the end of the season. So I just think like I fall into the habit of I look at blocks and I just think we have to be now like 14 cup finals, just one game at a time.
Every single game. Yeah, 14 games to go. We take every single one at a time.
You've heard me take it in chunks, right? I get way too carried away. I look at blocks. I'm like, oh, we can get 18 points from this. If I start doing that, call me out because I'm not going to
be looking at like, oh, guys, how many points do you think we get in these next 5? Like that, I'm not looking at that. There's only 3-5 blocks left, so no way, mate. I'm just looking at each of the 14 games of the cup final, as you say.
Yeah, literally, and it's just like obviously it's Everton midweek and then Bournemouth next week. I'm not even thinking about Bournemouth. I'm literally just Everton. Go in, get the 3 points, and I don't really care how we do it at this stage either. I think we've had like our nice pretty football and like consistently, if there's going to be the odd shithouse Leeds away win, give me it. I don't really care, to be honest. It's one game at a time.
We're both going to drop points, right? And Pep said this yesterday, so he's already come out and be like, oh, like Arsenal doing great, and then he goes, but they have Europa soon, and then they're going to drop points, and then he goes, and we will also drop points. So the winner will be the one who drops the least points. So he's already coming out and like cleverly phrasing his stuff and he's already preparing for the April match. He's coming out ready and firing. But I just love the narrative because obviously like we don't get to see this often where like two managers who are going for a title have such a long-standing friendship too and like respect for each other. Like back when Arteta was in the academy of La Masia, like back then, that's when Pep was playing in the first team for Barca. And like, that was nearly 20 years ago.
That's plus insane, isn't it?
Yeah, 25 years ago, these guys met. They've worked together since. They've played in the same team. Like, it's crazy when you think about it. And then like, obviously Arteta's come to us and he's brought some of their players with them. One thing I just want to add on the idea that City can go on this like 14 game winning run, which in previous seasons they have, and obviously there's only 14 games left. I don't think they've shown enough this season that they can do that. And one of the comments I heard, I think it was on a episode of maybe it was Arsenal Vision, and they kind of said that, you know, a lot of the players that made those runs are no longer there.
Yeah.
Like this is a different squad, and maybe we're not appreciating that enough. Like you had the likes of kind of Sterling, Zinchenko,
I said this
Jesus,
before Christmas.
you know,
Yeah,
Cancelo, like these are core players to those 14, 15 game
yeah,
winning runs. Like the squad has changed, and that back line, like it's been letting in like goals most games, and it constantly gets mixed up. Like there's
yeah.
constantly a different back line. Like yesterday, we see Lewis come back in, Aki come back in, like you know, Akanji come back in, and then like in another game, it will be like Diaz, Laporte, Walker.
And
like
even in midfield and attack, yesterday De Bruyne wasn't playing, and who else? There was that Bernardo wasn't playing.
Mahrez didn't play, Foden came in for him.
Yeah.
Like,
And like you've heard me say, I feel like genuinely I was one of the first to say and put myself out there. I don't think this City team are the same of the previous seasons, and I feel like everyone's kind of along that same wavelength now. But I said it before Christmas, like they will drop more points than people think. Like they have not shown that they're this invincible team this season, and I think so many people are basing it on what the previous teams have done in the past. And you're right, like it's not the same team. Like I don't know why people are judging that. It's like me saying, "Oh well, the Invincibles went unbeaten, so we're going to do that this season." Like okay, it's not quite like that, but you get the point, right?
I do. Should we go on to the passing networks real quick?
There's just one more thing. Just on the passing networks, why I wanted to include this was just what we said about Trossard and stylistically. Forget the numbers on the graphic there. Stylistically, this looks like a Gabriel Jesus Arsenal, right? In terms of the dynamic on the left-hand side. And I just thought it was really good to kind of include this. And you look at Jorginho as like the nucleus in the team and how well connected he is everywhere. It's, I don't know, I just thought structurally it's quite nice on the eye. And I actually thought Leicester's structure was quite good as well. When you look at there, it's quite balanced. But
I think it showed, right? Because Terence says like we need to shoot more. And I think that was something that we've been saying for many games, but definitely it felt like we were very good. And I think what I said was I enjoyed that we came out of the blocks fast, but it did feel that last decision, like obviously before Martinelli scored, there was like he was running through in the box and he just like skied it wide to the left.
Yeah.
And there was a few moments where I was like, it had the hallmarks of one of those games where like, oh, you know, we've dominated, then the goal got ruled out. Then we come out the second half. How are we going to react? Is that going to be lingering in our minds? Is this going to be cagey, or are we going to go full throttle and, you know, screw the knife in and turn it? And thankfully it was the latter, but he is right. Like I did feel that we were still kind of missing that final decision. I know last time in a few games you said it wasn't necessarily the final ball. It was actually just being clinical enough with the shots. Whereas in this game, I thought some of those final balls or final decisions weren't the right one either.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I think that's just worth calling out. But I think partly that's to do with what you've now said about Leicester and their networks and setup was actually quite sound. Like they made sure they did everything they could to try and prevent us getting through. And it almost worked for them, right?
Yeah, and I think it was a case of like first half, I definitely agree with that, what you just said. And then for me personally, I just think it was a case of second half, we got the early goal. And I think we just felt comfortable enough to kind of control the game and not force an opportunity. And if an opportunity, like I think their mindset was, we've got the early goal here, play our game. If there's an opening, we'll go for it. But if Leicester come on to us, we back ourselves to see this game out with our like very good control. And then if they come at us, there'll be opportunities that way. So I think first half, it was a case of there was definitely, we could have done better in the final third. But I think second half, I think it was a conscious decision personally to kind of just see the game out how it was.
I think just a kind of final thought here as well. So obviously we do want to briefly just preview the Everton game and what we think that lineup will be. We won't spend too long on that, but there's just a quick shout out I wanted to give actually just to Martinelli. It's unrelated to what he did in the game, but afterwards. So I've seen he obviously put a tweet out about another 3 points, and he said that goal was for Stephen, who's an Arsenal fan who's currently in hospital fighting for his life. And I just thought that was a really nice touch from Martinelli.
Yeah.
And it really showed like how in touch the players are with the fan base these days. And just, I think we need to continue being that 12th man. And we need to just, you were in the away end, right? Like maybe you can tell us how it felt having Arteta and the players coming to the corner at the end of the game, because I'd love to hear from your perspective being there. Like
I
that
got
must have been
goosebumps.
surreal.
Yeah, like have you seen that video doing the rounds of it? And it's so fucking loud, and you can see Arteta smiling, and like these players, like I think they all appreciate they're at such a special club, and I don't think there's another Premier League team that has a bond with its players and fans and manager like we do this season, genuinely. And yeah, that was so surreal. I was just so like, wow, this is special. You just feel something inside you. Like, yeah, it was absolutely incredible. And I think I was happy I was there because I've seen that before with like Villa away last season. I felt like that it was around March, and that felt like the most unified you could see the fan base and the team and the players when they were singing the Super Mick Arteta chant to each other. And then even yesterday, that felt like quite a pivotal moment. I couldn't tell you why, but everyone was in like their best vocals they were brought to the game. Like everyone was loud and proud, and I think the players, they acknowledged it, and that was so special seeing that.
Yeah, I could even hear like the away fans throughout the match just singing all the songs we normally hear at the Emirates. Obviously, I'm based out somewhere in Europe today and have access to the 3 p.m. games. No dodgy things going on here in case the Premier League is watching. And a big middle finger to them for making me pay for 3 different streaming services and still not being able to watch the team challenging for the title in 4 of their next 5 matches. Yeah, that's a bit wild. But that aside, just the final thing I want to add here is actually just on the passing network before we go to the preview of the next game is just a shout out to Gabriel Maglish, because honestly, I think this passing network really shows like just what he has to do for our team. Like he is basically on his own on the left. Like Saliba still has White and Jorginho to like rely on at times, but Gabriel is truly on his own. Yes, people will run back, like Zinchenko pointing and Avengers Assemble and 10-man sharp in the box, sure. But like generally, it's basically like if anyone gets in on that wing, Gabriel's like, what should I do? It's just him. So that vertical defending he does from like the halfway line all the way back to our box. And we've seen it as well in the kind of, I know we don't have the stats today for like progression via pass and progression via carry, but he has been one of our top progressors of the ball this season too, all the way from centre back. And I just think that earlier in the season, I think we talked about some of the like kind of the mistakes or rashness that he can do when he loses his head a bit. But I think there is something in his warrior mentality that is also what suits him to be that lone man doing this job.
It's like 100%.
Like he couldn't do this if he didn't have those moments. It's almost like you
just have to take the rough with the smooth, right? Like it's
exactly.
And to be honest, he's ironed out those mistakes. Like at the time, it was. I still.
It was like every week there was like 1 or 2, yeah.
Yeah, and I still stand by. Like you are allowed to criticize a player for a mistake without it being you want them hung, drawn, and quartered. Like
no abuse, just constructive conversation.
Constructive criticism. But like you're right, how he covers that. He basically covers a third of the pitch himself, and this is why. Like I forgot who said it, but in the preview pod, someone was like, "Oh, you worried about?" I forgot who the player was.
They were worried about
against
Zinchenko, yeah.
And this is why I say, like, it is not often that the winger is isolated against Zinchenko. I think that's the thing we've got in our heads as like Zinchenko's a left back, so therefore it's going to be a matchup. That's never the matchup. And it's our structure that makes it so bloody hard for teams to actually get in there. And then when you do get in that little pocket, you're met with a fucking Brazilian man mountain. So good luck.
Yeah, and just on Saliba as well, because as you mentioned, the kind of being allowed to constructively criticize, Saliba made a really interesting comment where he kind of said, like, I went to the World Cup, I didn't really get to play,
Is it? I've not seen this.
Yeah, he said, I know it was a nice experience, but, I understand I'm young. It makes me hungrier to get in and be like a starter in the next World Cup squad. And he said, and he actually explicitly said, I know since I came back from the World Cup, I've not been great. I've had some bad games. He said this stuff and he acknowledged playing badly. And then he said, like, Arteta, he tells us. He tells us when we do good and he tells us when we do bad. And then he goes, and that's great because then like, what you need to do. And he's like, and he just clear. And this is what I'm getting at. Like, so
just like straight to the point.
Like if we're talking about it, then definitely Arteta and the coaching staff are telling these guys about these things. And I just thought that's, again, another real gem we have there on the other side of centre-back where he is openly saying that he doesn't feel he's been at his best. And he said, I want to get back to my best and I will do soon. But he's like acknowledging this, and not many players, I think, we've come from an environment where every time someone scored a goal against us, I just see Mustafi pointing at someone else.
Yeah. There was no
Our team used to just
before,
point
right?
at each other for mistakes.
Yeah.
Like no one took any accountability. And now instead,
you've got the fan base singing the name of Tomiyasu who made the mistake, and like you see the players,
and you see like the players come up and grab his chin and like try to hold his head up, and it's just we are honestly more united than we've been before. But let's if you guys start putting questions in the chat, we're just going to briefly spend 5 minutes talking about the Everton game. But do let us know as well what you kind of think the predicted score is for you at home against Everton. But in the meantime, there is this is not a question from Bungle, but it might as well be. So I'll just address it before we go on to the Everton game, which is essentially like Edison can get in the bin FPL wise. What a waste plank. He's been pants. I just want to read that out because I know a lot of people went there for the double game weeks in FPL, and it seems that he has burnt them. As I say, they just seem to concede that one goal every week at the moment. Like I'm sure that will change, but then it's like I just feel like it's a lot of money to spend, Bongo, in your back line, and it might be time to start making an exit plan, especially if they don't play in game week 28. But so in terms of Everton,
before we do go to Everton.
Oh yeah, sorry. Any last bits on Leicester?
Yeah. No, so Bungle's FPL thing has got me thinking. We've both got Nketiah, right? Do you think he's actually going to come in? I guess that ties.
So it is an
Everton
ideal topic for this, because my view is I think Trossard's now been named man of the match as well from Arsenal account. So I've seen that. I don't see how Trossard can be dropped after that performance. It depends whether you see that as a rest for Nketiah, or was it that he lost his spot. Now, if it happens 2 games in a row, then it's obviously no longer a rest, right? So I think we'll know in that Everton game. So depending on what happens in FPL wise, if I see like Eddie doesn't start again midweek in the second game of the double, that's going to be some big decisions I'm going to have to make, because Jesus is on his way back. And as much as I'd love Eddie in my team, I could see a world in which I move Eddie on. If I feel that he is not the first choice, Trossard's taken that spot, and then Jesus is also coming back, then it's going to be too much rotate. Then he's a sell for me. But for now, I'm going to just wait and see.
Yeah, if he doesn't start against Everton, that's an absolute sell. Well, I guess we then got Bournemouth, right? So you're playing chicken a bit with the lineup. But I guess the question from me is, obviously the rumours pre-match were he's had like an ankle knock that he's been carrying through and stuff. So do you think he was dropped, or do you think it was like a rest?
So the thing is,
the ankle, because I've not seen that acknowledged anywhere.
Yeah, so the knock,
mainstream media.
So the knock makes no sense to me, because even on the commentary, they were like, "Oh, like he's played a lot of minutes recently and he's getting rest." And their words were, they literally said, Nketiah is fit today. He's an option off the bench. He's fit to play. If you're fit to play,
so that's a drop then, yeah.
So it's either a rest, because it could still be a rest. Because my view was he's played every minute of every game since the World Cup started. And I think I've been saying this for a few weeks.
You did say, yeah.
I've been saying it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not sure. I was like, he did so well against United, against Tottenham. He was flying through. And then suddenly, like, he played like the full game against Oxford in the Cup, and he just played every single game. So part of me felt that, okay, he does need a rest. He just looks mentally and physically jaded. He's never played this many games of professional football at this level, competing for a title
with this much on the line.
3 games a week. Like he's never done that in a professional career. So I can understand that he's burnt out a bit. Now the debate is, so I don't think he was dropped, but the way Trossard played, which was more akin to what we would expect from Jesus zonally, that then makes me think, even though he wasn't dropped initially, we know that Arteta wants to stick with a winning team. He doesn't want to change. He wants to reward good performance. So when Trossard's played like that and scored a disallowed goal like that, I don't see how he gets dropped. So now I feel it was just a rest that is going to end up being with him not necessarily starting against Everton either. And that's going to leave us in a difficult situation from an FPL point of view, not from an Arsenal point of view. I'm glad they're giving each other headaches. But from an FPL point of view, then it's like, if he's not started 2, then you'd think, well, surely he starts the next one because he's had 2 games of rest. But that's not the case if he's been dropped.
Like the Phil Foden debates of 2 years ago, isn't it? Is he going to play or not? But I'm with you. I think he's going to go for the same team on Wednesday, because I think, although I don't think Leicester parked the bus, I think that was more like, I think they tried to play their game. When they got into pockets, they tried to go forward quickly, but they couldn't. I think Everton will come and park the bus and they'll try and do what Newcastle did and stuff. And as a result, I do think Trossard is the right stylistic fit for that. I think that's the right solution to the potential problem.
Now, it
And
depends on Martinelli, by the way, obviously, because he was taking a lot of hits that game. I
did he
honestly didn't
complete
think
the game or did he go
he
off?
did. Yeah, I think he did. So I was shocked he managed to complete the game. That's, I guess, what I'm getting at. And I wonder if after some tests over the next few days, they decide, you know what, we don't want to risk him starting. And we have
Yeah,
Bournemouth on the weekend. Let's give him a breather. If that happened, then I can see obviously Trossard on the left, Eddie through the middle. So I think for me, whether Eddie plays or not is actually not based on Trossard. I think Trossard will play regardless. I
yeah,
think it's based on where Martinelli's at fitness wise after that. But yeah,
that's a nice
let's
thought.
see.
One of my other thoughts is why I think he will go for the same. I feel like Nketiah off the bench, if you need a goal, is better than starting Nketiah and bringing on a Trossard if you need a goal. I feel like if you start with the Trossard false nine to try and lock the defense, and then the reason I'm saying this is think game state, right? If that solution hasn't unlocked what you need and you're getting to the 75th minute, in that period, that game state is going to insinuate that that team is going to be fully camped. And that's where I think you bring on a goal scorer like Nketiah for 15 minutes to give them something different rather than the other way around. I feel like if you're starting with an Nketiah and it doesn't work out and it gets to the last 10, 15 minutes and then you bring on a Trossard,
It might
I
be too
don't think
late.
that's I don't think that's the profile you bring on to try and give defenders a different headache. Personally, I think it's the other way around. So that's why I feel like starting with a Trossard and bringing on an Nketiah if you need a goal is probably quite a nice way around. It's so mad though because I didn't see this happening at all personally. In terms of Trossard starting up top, so that was an oversight from my part.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the predicted lineup, I think again Ben White will start. I think Zinchenko
Yeah.
will start. I think for me the only question mark is that Martinelli thing. Now,
Well, Terence has put a question in which is like related to the should we play Tierney for the Everton game? Push Zinchenko up. So I guess two questions. One, should we, in your opinion? And two, do you think we will?
that's a good point because what I think we should do and what we will actually do are
Yeah.
maybe different in my mind. So I would like to see Tierney play. I think Martinelli, one of the reasons he's had a bit of a barren run before these two goals is because he's missing that support of someone there behind him. So I do think if Martinelli is going to start up there, it is nice to have someone to support him, let him go inside a bit and let Tierney take the width. In terms of why I don't think we will do it, is just purely because if Partey's still not going to be ready to start the next game, we don't know. But if he's not, let's say, I don't see a world in which he changes two of that midfield three. So I don't see like Zinchenko, Jorginho, and Odegaard together. I think that's too much disruption, too much change. If Partey is fit to start, which he
I think
should
he
be
will be, to
technically,
be
yeah.
fair. Yeah.
So then if we see a world where Partey starts, then I think it might be more appealing to Arteta to play Zinchenko next to Partey in that 8, drop Xhaka for a rest, put Tierney at left back. So for me, that decision is actually very dependent on whether Partey starts or not, because I don't see us changing two of the midfield three with Partey. Now, with their strong three-man midfield at Everton that we found out last game, you would think that the whole point of Partey getting minutes in this last match was
100%.
so he can start that battle against
Which
them.
is harsh. It's harsh on Jorginho, but this is the level we're at, right? Right? We can afford to do that. And just on like for what it's worth, my 2 pence on the Tierney thing, exact same as you. And I just kind of look at the whole left hand side as a dynamic now, and it's like I think Tierney should. I think your party point is brilliant. I completely agree with all of that. And Zinchenko, Tierney for me should only play if Nketiah is up top, because then I think you've got some like a focal point that you've got your crosses in. If it's a fluid front line of Martinelli, Trossard, and Saka, I think that's where we don't need the outlet in Tierney that we needed in previous games. For me, it's when you've got an Nketiah up there and the link up isn't quite there on the left. That's why I want a Tierney as the outlet, a Martinelli closer to Nketiah, and then potentially a Zinchenko, for me, ideally Zinchenko in that left 8. So for me, I only want Tierney to play if Nketiah against a low block, if Nketiah is the focal striker.
So I still think it's a lot more changes than I expected to make, because then it would be playing Eddie, because he'd be playing Eddie instead of Trossard, who started. He'd be playing Tierney, instead of Xhaka, essentially, because Zinchenko will go
Yeah,
up, and then
exactly.
Partey comes in
Yeah.
for Jorginho, and that's like suddenly
Yeah.
4 or 5 changes from a winning team.
Oh, that's not
And I
me
don't
saying
see it
what I
being
want to do. Yeah,
no,
that's
no,
just
but
like,
the situation in
yeah,
which you would. But the reason I bring that up is because one thing that I think could happen, Terence, and this is what I think is maybe more realistic, is that Zinchenko stays there at the left, and whether Eddie comes in or not for Trossard, either way, I don't think we're far off seeing Fabio Vieira playing instead of Xhaka
me too.
alongside Partey and
I can
Odegaard.
see it against Bournemouth, I really
Mm.
can.
Definitely, and obviously they've come out recently. Like we talked about, Fabio Vieira's interview last episode, but since then as well, like Arteta and everyone, they basically like
It's been bigging
they've
him
all
up.
said that what he can do, they were like, we have no other profile in the squad that can do what he can do. They're like,
Yeah.
he is unique in our squad, and we now feel he's physically ready for this league. So both he himself and the coaching staff essentially saying that like he needed time to settle. We feel he's settled, and he's saying like, I have a big headache now because he
Yeah.
should be playing games and starting games. So now yesterday when we were struggling to score initially, I did think, oh, it'd be nice to bring him on for Xhaka, but once I saw how physical that last 20 minutes was getting and just
Yeah.
constant stop start, free kick after another free kick, I was like, okay, like you could see Jorginho just constantly taking head knocks and doing what a veteran leader would do and just fucking disrupting any chance of Leicester score. Even Xhaka started to pick up on it. Was like, oh, okay, Georgie, I'll do the same. And they're both just dropping like flies every time. Like, what teams do to us, we did to them because we were ahead. And it didn't feel like the kind of game you bring on Fabio Vieira if we're saying
No,
he's
not
not
at all.
physically ready.
And this is the brilliance of our squad, right? Like this is like, I think last 2 weeks people have been trying to retire Xhaka, and it's not that. I just think I think Xhaka, Vieira, Smith Rowe, Odegaard all have different use cases for different scenarios, and I just think use them. Like it doesn't have to be one or the other. Just utilize them to the maximum that you can.
I like what you're saying about Bournemouth though, because my thought was Everton at home. It's the home crowd, and like we're going to struggle to break them down with that deep block. But they are very physical, so it might be that actually the Bournemouth game, as you say, is maybe one that he's earmarked as a Vieira start. And we've said everyone's slowly been getting a rest. If you look carefully, right? Like Ben White had his rest, he's now back in. Martinelli had his rest, he's back in. And Nketiah had his rest. We'll see whether he's back in. Xhaka, Partey to an extent had his rest through injury; it was forced, but Xhaka's not had his rest yet. Saka's not had a rest yet. Zinchenko's not had a rest yet. Are these 3 positions that we could start seeing some rest in the next few weeks? Like
Maybe, yeah. I think
or is it in the Europa League that they get rested? That's
what so as I said, I could see Vieira playing against Bournemouth. I then started forward thinking, and I was like, I think a lot of this is dependent on how Xhaka actually performs on Wednesday to then whether he keeps his place against Bournemouth. But if Xhaka does well, I could see us hopefully going up and being comfortable against Bournemouth, where he then brings and changes a lot of the team with a view to then the Sporting team next, not this Thursday after, being a bit more of a Man City away in the cup, like 5-6 changes. So yeah, I think we'll get a lot of information from the game on Wednesday, so that when we do the preview pod on Friday for Bournemouth, I think we'll have a lot more information on this. But I definitely think it's one to keep an eye on, 100%.
Now, in terms of just predicted score, and then I've got a few questions I've starred in the chat and comments that we can bring up. But
Sounds good.
Bungle's gone for Arsenal 3-0. Everton.
Nice. That'll be brilliant.
I would love that. I have a feeling of something similar. I'm fairly confident that we're going to have
Calvert-Lewin's out.
Yeah, exactly. Calvert-Lewin's out. I think that's a big thing for us, which I'm very happy about.
And being at home is a different ball game. Like,
of course, the one game a year that Calvert-Lewin was fit was the other game, wasn't it? He was
with
doing
their
everything.
new manager as well.
Yeah, like, it was painful, man.
That game under Lampard would have been so different. Like
it would have 100%. So I'm pretty bullish. I think it's a 2-0 minimum.
Okay.
I'd like to go as high as Bungle with 3-0, but I think I'm going to stick with 2-0. How about you? What's your predicted scoreline?
We're annoying. We've gone back to back on the same. I'm going 2-0 as well.
You're going 2-0 as well. All right, let's take some of these questions in the live chat. And obviously, just a quick thank you to everyone for tuning in. If you've enjoyed the show, please hit that like. If you found it entertaining, subscribe so you can see the new episodes. And thank you again for helping us hit the 150 subscriber milestone.
And like, I was worried, was someone going to unsubscribe so we go to 149, but we're on 152 now. So I think we're comfortably over that hurdle. And yeah, thanks very much. I can't tell you how grateful we are for like people just taking the time to actually listen to us talking about Arsenal.
Yeah, no, honestly, this has been what an incredible season it's been so far. And I really hope that we do treat each of the next 14 reviews like cup final reviews, because that's what they are. That's really what they are. So
Need to start turning up drunk then.
Yeah, well, it's a bit early in the morning this time, but I did consider, should I just open a beer and like have it as a celebration? But then I was like, maybe on an evening pod,
Yeah,
pod.
I think I might start doing that for the evening ones.
Yeah, I think so. When I first started streaming for FPL a couple of years ago, I look back on some of those episodes and I'm like, wow, like what was I doing? Like there were people in the live chat and they'd be like, is it just me, or has Nima got more progressively drunk as the show has gone on? And I'll be like, dude, it's not just you. And then I'll hold up this empty red wine bottle. And I'm like, over the last 2 hours,
A
I've just
bottle.
yeah, I
Wow.
was like, I've just drank this. And then like, obviously by the end, there was one stream where they called me 5-drink Nemo because I had like a cup of water. I had like a cider, a beer, a wine, a gin and tonic. And they were like just all in front of me. I was camped out in front of the screen. So I've matured a bit since those days. That was like when pandemic first hit and we were locked up at home and working from home every day.
So if ever we get a sponsorship deal, it needs to be an alcoholic company then.
100%. Yeah, please. I need that. So if you're watching this and you work at Heineken or anywhere, do send me some drinks. So Terence, just want to pull up his comments because I think this is quite related to something we discussed earlier about this is our best chance. We won't get a chance like this again. And he said, this doesn't apply the way it did with the Invincible squad. Obviously, the squad aged and the manager had no more answers. And where he did have answers, I think it's fair to say that those answers chose to leave before the teams could be built around them, with the likes of Fabregas or Van Persie after a good season, or Nasri and Clichy. And so they didn't kind of stay on to make that happen. He says now Arteta has a young, hungry squad and has the answers.
Yeah, and so just the whole process behind the scene. I know process is such a buzzword, but it's so true with us. Like the strategic planning of behind the scenes, you're seeing the recruitment. It's so fucking good that this whole project is so well equipped for the next few years. I'm so confident that we will be in and around the top teams in Europe for the next few seasons. Not a doubt in my mind.
I'm so excited to see, like, obviously it's a bit premature, but so excited to see like how we do against Champions League teams next year.
Me too. Finals at Wembley.
Ooh, that could be a big one. Imagine that, winning the Premier League this year, the Champions League next year. I'm just gonna will that into reality. Like I'm just gonna sit there and manifest. Just keep manifesting with me, Gooners. Manifest.
I might go to church after this and pray for that.
Yeah, you might. You're gonna see me at the mosque, the synagogue, the bloody the mandir. I'm gonna go everywhere, mate. So can Balogun be the answer we're looking for up front? So that's a really interesting for those rumors of potential, clubs coming in for him in the summer. They say that clubs are aware that Arsenal have Jesus and Eddie, and they're monitoring Balogun because they're kind of thinking, how many strikers can Arsenal keep? Like, who's going to be happy to be third choice from that group? That's a really tough one for me. I think we need to see him come back in pre-season. We need to see what, like this. He needs to be with this squad and play in those pre-season matches and train with them. And I don't think we can make a decision until Arteta sees that. And he needs to see that. I don't honestly, what he's doing right now is phenomenal. Like he's in that golden boot race against the likes of Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe.
I know.
It's honestly,
and for phenomenal. A mid-table team, right? Like they're not exactly.
Well, their team, right? So their manager doesn't have his coaching license.
I know, it's such a mad story.
He's like 30 something. I think he's like 33 or so. He's basically my age or something. He played Football Manager, decided to become a coach from Football Manager, and his club get fined every week because he doesn't have the license yet. So every week, his club pay a fine for not having a manager with the right coaching license.
Yeah,
and yet he's undefeated in like 15. Since he joined.
Crazy.
It's crazy. It's a crazy story.
If you pull up the question again, I've got quite a strong opinion on what I think is going to happen. So like I try to forwardly predict what the squad building plan is. And I think how I always talk of like the forwards as a group. I think he's going to look at that forward group. I don't think he's including Smith Rowe in there. I think Smith Rowe is going to be like a number 8 for us. So I think he's looking at that group, and currently he's got Martinelli, Trossard, Jesus, Nketiah, and Saka that I think are of the level we need to be at. So I'm not including Nelson in there. Vieira can play right wing, but I don't think that's where Arteta wants him. So what I think is going to happen, I think he wants one more. I think he wants a group of 6. And what I think is going to happen, I actually think we're going to cash in on Eddie in the summer. And I agree. I think we're going to look at Balogun, see where he's at. But I think Arteta wants 6 for the 3. And I think it'll be Martinelli, and Trossard for the left wing. Jesus, Balogun, Trossard that can cover the centre forward, because then stylistically you cover multiple different profiles. And then I think we're going to get another right winger.
Yeah, I
That can
think we're going to
also,
be in big for a winger still.
yeah. And so then I think it's going to be Martinelli, Trossard, Jesus, Balogun, and Saka, and then whoever the new mystery winger is that can, and I think it'll be another winger similar to Trossard that is flexible and can play more than one, like not just a specialist right winger. So that's what I think is going to happen. But I think you're right. A lot of that will depend on what he sees with Balogun. But I just think, excuse me, Balogun's ceiling is scary. And like, I love Nketiah. Like, I absolutely love him. And I think I've been so bullish on him, like that he will prove so many Arsenal fans wrong. And this isn't me saying that I think he's a bad player. I just think we got to make a decision on Balogun or Nketiah. And I think Nketiah hasn't got as much more room to grow, whereas Balogun's ceiling is ridiculous.
They have the same agent, right? And Saka has also got the same agent.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So when Eddie, so first he got Balogun the contract, and before he went on loan, then he got Eddie the contract, and obviously now he's been negotiating Saka's contract, which will make Saka the highest paid at the club. I did think when Eddie was about to leave for a free that was a bit of a strange situation to be in, because you're the agent of the guy who just extended the contract of Eddie's competitor for that position. And then you're there with the club debating a 100K contract for like the other. So, one of your clients is going to end up unhappy, but you're there trying to get the most from both of them. So that's that dynamic.
I'm surprised that's not a conflict of interest for the agent and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised both players are perfectly happy to let him go about his business for them. But at the time, we did say, and I think we still made the right choice, that you lose Eddie on a free at the time, and you're going to have to pay minimum 50 million for someone, right? And you're going to have to pay them probably more than 100K a week. So overall, over the length of the contract Eddie has, we're paying just shy of like what a transfer for a new centre forward would have cost without the wages being taken into account. But we've also protected our value, because this is an academy boy who we would have had to replace, pay more, and we would get nothing out of it. Now we've had him cover for us when Jesus was out. He's, hopefully risen his stock. And if it is the case that Balogun ends up coming in and taking that spot, I think you're right. Like, I think Eddie could be the one that goes. And it's a shame, but I think he could still do a big job at another Premier League club. And,
me too. Like in a transitional team, my God, I think he could be like a 12, 15 goals a season striker, no doubt. And I think another thing is, like, I said about Nketiah, like how much more room is there for him to add things to his game? I think there is, but I feel like value-wise, I don't think his value is going to go up too much more. Whereas this is a big claim from everything we're seeing and hearing. I think Balogun could be like a huge transfer fee type player in the future. So I think while he's ours, keep him, utilize him, grow him, add tools to his arsenal. Like, that's what I think will happen. But you're right, a lot of that will depend on what Arteta sees of him when he comes back.
I'm just having a look. So this is just about the game later today. I think it's at 1:30 today. Yeah, so off topic from Bungle, he says, but the scummed on derby at the Toilet Bowl later. The only fixture I wish both teams could get battered. Even better that this season the result doesn't impact us at all.
I'm not going to watch it. I think, I don't know if I've said this, but I just don't watch Tottenham unless we're playing them. I just wasted my life.
I can't handle it. Yeah, I honestly can't handle it. And especially because I saw Kane in FPL, so we know what happens next.
Bungle made a good point. Bungle said Balogun's team's on at the same time, so I'm just going to watch that, I think.
Yeah, I'd rather watch that too, man. But honestly, like for me, I'm looking for like a 0-0 or like a Chelsea win. I really just want to see. Right? Yeah, well, I'd prefer a Chelsea win just solely because I know Liverpool dropped points yesterday. It's a bit unfortunate for them, but
Lokonga was balling apparently. I didn't see the game.
So he's slowly growing into some
come
confidence.
On, I'm a Sam v Stan boy, so come on.
Hopefully he can come back under a manager like Vieira.
I hope so. No, I actually saw him sprinting to defend. I was like, what's that?
It's like, what has changed? Damn, he's maturing.
Vieira giving him that good foo-foo.
Yeah, I heard that player was saying that, the one who scored in the Champions League. They were like, how did you get, was it Adeyemi? Yeah. They were like, how did you get past your man? He's like, I've been eating good African food since I was young. It's made me strong. I love that. But the reason I want Chelsea to win is because I have this feeling that like people are sleeping on Liverpool. We're all laughing at them, but
Me
I
too.
genuinely think that like they can come fourth and they can take that spot from
Oh, me too.
from what do you call it, Spurs. So anything that harms Spurs' chance of top four, I'm going to root for.
Oh, 100%, mate. Yeah,
Yeah,
same here.
I'm definitely down for that.
For what it's worth, my top four prediction right now, I'm not going to say top two in order because I'm not jinxing that shit. But I think third and fourth will be United and Liverpool. I actually do think it will be Liverpool that get it.
I'm similar thinking. I do think so. This question, I think, is just like the last main question to bring up, and then we'll get out of here. So, Terence asks, can Partey and Jorginho form a Vieira and Petit-like partnership, or will they just cover each other in that sixth
So
role?
this is what I was getting at. Like, for what it's worth, I don't think we'll deviate from the six. But if we still played a 4-2-3-1 double pivot, like I tweeted a hypothetical thing, like I could see Partey and Jorginho being a fantastic partnership because of the attributes and what they give you. I think if we still played a double pivot and like a traditional number 10, we'd have a complete midfield, man. Like I think it would be not that we don't already, but I just think stylistically the 4-3-3, what it gives us all over the pitch and enables Zinchenko to do what he does. But yeah, I think they could form a partnership like that. But I don't think we'll see it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't think we will. I feel we might just see it in game states where, like, let's say we start with Partey, and instead of like last week, obviously Partey came on for Odegaard. It might be that you see like Jorginho come on for Odegaard, and Partey then moves into Odegaard's position or something, and then Jorginho.
I really hope Smith Rowe gets some minutes like over the next 7-10 days. I think he will, right? Over Everton at home, Bournemouth home, Sporting Lisbon away, there'll be moments where he can be thrown back in, won't there?
Definitely. And just in terms of just Bungle said about Vieira as well, that all the recent media is for an impending Fabio start at the carpet.
Yep.
And then Terence's prediction was 2-1 Tarkovsky to score from a corner.
I hope that's 2-1 to us.
No, it is. I think he might have Tarkovsky in FPL. I don't know if you play FPL,
right.
Terence, but if you do, then I imagine you might have Tarkovsky in your team, which would be a win-win situation for you here if that's the case.
Yeah, no, I want that clean sheet for Gabriel. And also just I want Ramsdale to get that golden glove.
Yeah, definitely. And then just in terms of like that double pivot essentially of Jorginho and Partey. So games like Everton away are where that could have gone in well, Terence says. So I think I tend to agree. I just don't think we're going to deviate too much from our current game plan. But yeah, again, thank you to everyone for tuning in.
Yeah,
honestly,
thanks,
it's been
everyone.
a pleasure. And we will be back for reviewing the Everton game and also previewing, obviously, the Fulham game. The main good news for that is that Paulinho picked up his 10th yellow of the season.
Yeah, that's big.
He's now going to be banned for our match. So,
oh wait, no, it's
a 2-game ban, so he's going to be banned.
Yeah, but like our next home, is it Fulham next? I thought
it's Fulham away. Yeah.
Oh, is it?
And then Bournemouth. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Bournemouth is in game 27. Yeah, and Fulham away, I think, is in 20.
No,
or is it the other way around?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, okay. So he's suspended for the Fulham game in 26 and also in 27 against us. Fine.
Yeah. So yeah,
so it's actually Bournemouth full preview.
Yeah. So we'll do the Everton review and Bournemouth preview. We're not sure if it will be one pod together or two separate ones, but Nima and I will have a chat and then we'll figure that out.
Yeah, I think with these quick turnarounds, 3 a week, it's proving to be a bit too difficult to do individual pods. But when we have matches once a week, we will try and do them separated out again. But I think it's been, good. We've managed to squeeze in both of them into just over an hour. So it's been good this week. And again, see you all for the next one. And we will tweet out some timings for the review of the next game.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks a lot, everyone. Up the Arsenal.
Up the Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners.